The first thing Adrian Blackwell noticed was not the trembling Omega on the stage, but the way every dangerous man in the room suddenly forgot how to breathe. The underground hall beneath the old opera house glittered like a place pretending it had never done anything wrong. Gold lights spilled across black marble floors. Crystal glasses clicked softly in gloved hands. Men in tailored suits whispered behind expensive smiles, and every whisper seemed to crawl over Noah Bennett's skin. He stood under the spotlight in a white button-down shirt 2 sizes too big, his pale fingers curled into the hem like he could hold himself together by fabric alone. He was not supposed to look up. That was the first rule his stepfather had drilled into him before shoving him into the back of a black SUV. Keep your eyes down, keep your mouth shut, and do not embarrass me in front of people who can erase us before breakfast. Noah had believed him, because believing dangerous people was sometimes the only way to survive them. The room smelled of cologne, smoke, old money, and alpha dominance pressing from every direction like a storm with teeth. Noah's scent blocker itched at the side of his neck. Cheap. Too tight. The kind bought from a gas station 2 towns over, not from a clinic. He had been told it would hide everything. His fear, his designation, his past. But nothing could hide the way his knees nearly gave out when the host crossed the stage toward him with a smile polished sharp enough to cut glass. Gentlemen, the man announced, his voice rolling through the hall. Tonight's final presentation is rare. Untouched by any family claim. No registered bond. No protector. A soft ripple moved through the crowd. Noah's stomach turned cold. Presentation. Protector. Claim. They spoke about him like paperwork, like a painting, like a house with clean windows and a locked basement. Across the room, Adrian Blackwell sat alone at the highest table, one ankle resting over his knee, black suit immaculate, silver eyes unreadable. At 29, Adrian was already the name fathers warned their sons about, and rivals lowered their voices to mention. He did not clap. He did not smile. He had only come because the underworld was shifting, and when snakes gathered in one room, a smart man counted the fangs. Then the host reached for Noah's collar. Noah flinched before he could stop himself. It was small, almost nothing, but Adrian saw it. His gaze sharpened. The host chuckled as if fear were charming and tugged the fabric aside just enough for the room to see the pale, old marks near Noah's collarbone. Not fresh, not dramatic, just quiet evidence of a history Noah had spent years hiding under high collars and careful silence. The whispers stopped. Every glass paused halfway to every mouth. Noah stared at the floor so hard his vision blurred, shame burning behind his eyes even though he had done nothing wrong. Then Adrian stood. The chair moved back with a sound that cracked through the hall. No one else moved. Not the guards by the velvet ropes. Not the host with his hand still near Noah's shoulder. Not Noah, who suddenly felt the room change shape around him. Adrian descended the steps slowly, each footfall measured, calm, terrible. He did not look at the crowd. He looked at the mark half hidden beneath Noah's collar, at the faint curved symbol worked into old scar tissue, like a signature someone had wanted the world to forget. Adrian knew that symbol. He had seen it once before, on a sealed police photo his uncle told him never to open again, from the night his father died. The air left his lungs quietly. For one impossible second, the most feared alpha in the city looked less like a king and more like a boy recognizing the ghost that had followed him for 10 years. Noah finally lifted his eyes. They were wide, blue-gray, terrified, and too innocent for a room like this. Adrian stopped in front of the stage, his voice low enough that the room leaned in to hear it. Take your hand off him. The host's smile twitched. Mr. Blackwell, this is simply part of the verification. Adrian's eyes did not move. I said take your hand off him. This time, the host obeyed. Noah's breath shook loose, barely there, but Adrian heard it. Every alpha instinct in him went still and focused, not possessive, not hungry, but protective in a way that felt older than language. He removed his jacket and stepped onto the stage. Noah backed away on instinct, expecting anger, punishment, ownership, anything except what came next. Adrian stopped several feet away and held the jacket out instead of touching him. You can take it, he said, softer now, so only Noah could hear. No one here gets to look at you again unless you allow it. Noah stared at him as if kindness were a trick with a hidden blade. The room waited. The underworld waited. And with trembling hands, Noah accepted the jacket of the man everyone feared. Pulling it around his shoulders like warmth was something he had almost forgotten existed. Adrian turned back to the crowd, and the lights seemed colder when they hit his face. He had come tonight looking for a conspiracy. Instead, he had found an Omega covered in secrets, wearing the symbol of his father's murderer like a wound. And by the time the first man dared to whisper again, Adrian Blackwell had already decided that the old rules of the Underworld were going to end. Adrian Blackwell did not raise his voice again, because he did not need to. The hall already understood what his silence meant. One by one, the men who had been smiling a minute earlier looked away from Noah Bennett, as if the white jacket around his shoulders had turned into a warning sign. Noah stood frozen beneath the chandelier light, fingers buried in the soft lining, waiting for someone to laugh, waiting for the trick to reveal itself, waiting for Adrian to turn and tell him the price. That was how rescue usually worked in Noah's world. It was never free. It always came with a hand on the back of his neck, a locked door, a debt written in a language he had not agreed to speak. But Adrian only reached into his inner pocket, removed a black card, and handed it to the host without taking his eyes off Noah. "Mark him as unavailable," Adrian said. The host swallowed. "Of course, Mr. Blackwell." A murmur moved through the crowd, low and hungry with gossip. Adrian had claimed the final presentation. Adrian had chosen the quiet Omega with the hidden scars. Adrian had made a statement in front of every family that mattered. Noah heard the whispers twist around him, and his stomach tightened so hard he almost forgot to breathe. Chosen, bought, claimed. The words crawled over his skin. Adrian must have seen the panic rising in him, because his voice softened when he turned back. "Walk beside me if you can. Behind me if you need to. Either way, nobody touches you." Noah stared at him, uncertain which version of the sentence to trust. Then the nearest guard stepped aside, and Adrian waited. He actually waited. Not impatiently. Not like a man pretending to be kind for an audience. Just still, controlled, giving Noah enough space to decide where his feet went. That small mercy nearly broke him. Noah stepped down from the stage, legs weak, and chose to walk behind Adrian. Close enough to follow but far enough to feel safe. The room parted for them. Outside, the October air hit Noah's face like clean water. The old opera house stood 5 miles from downtown, tucked between abandoned warehouses and a parking lot shining with rain. A black SUV waited at the curb, engine running, warm light glowing through tinted windows. Adrian opened the rear door himself, then stepped back. Noah looked at the seat, then at him. "Where are you taking me?" His voice came out thin, almost lost under the rain. "Home," Adrian said, then corrected himself before Noah could flinch. "My home. You will have your own room. A doctor will examine you only if you agree. After that, you can decide what happens next." Noah gave a small, bitter laugh that sounded like it had been locked away for years. "People like you do not ask people like me to decide things." Something unreadable passed through Adrian's eyes. Not anger, not pity, something heavier. "Then people like me have been wrong." The drive to the Blackwell estate took 20 minutes. Noah counted every turn, every red light, every mile marker, because fear had taught him that knowing the way out mattered. Adrian noticed, of course. He noticed everything, but he did not comment. He sat on the opposite side of the seat, hands folded, gaze forward, leaving nearly 3 feet of space between them as if that distance were a promise. When they reached the estate, Noah expected cold stone, armed men, and locked gates. He found all 3, but he also found a quiet foyer, warm lamps, a staircase lined with old family photographs, and a housekeeper named Mrs. Holloway who looked at his shaking hands and immediately brought hot tea instead of questions. The guest room was larger than Noah's entire apartment had been. Cream walls, heavy curtains, a bed untouched and wide enough to make him nervous. Adrian stopped at the doorway and did not cross the threshold. "This room locks from the inside," he said, placing a small brass key on the table. "Only you will have that key." Noah stared at it, as if it might disappear. "Why?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "Because a locked door should protect you, not trap you." For 1 second, Noah forgot how to stand. Mrs. Holloway returned with a female Omega doctor named Elise Carter, who introduced herself gently and kept her medical bag closed until Noah nodded. Adrian remained in the hallway the entire time, visible but distant, a shadow with restraint. When Elise finally stepped out, her face was calm, but her eyes were not. Adrian looked at her once, and she shook her head almost imperceptibly, as if to say the story written on Noah's skin was worse than either of them had wanted to believe. Inside the room, Noah sat on the edge of the bed, still wrapped in Adrian's jacket, whispering apologies to no one. Adrian heard him through the open door. Sorry for being difficult. Sorry for being damaged. Sorry for taking up space. His hand curled once at his side, slow and controlled. The Underworld thought he had brought home a possession. They were wrong. He had brought home a witness, a survivor, and possibly the only person alive who could name the ghost that had haunted him for a decade. Noah Bennett did not sleep that night, though the room tried very hard to convince him it was safe. The bed was soft enough to swallow him whole. The sheets smelled like lavender instead of fear, and the brass key sat on the nightstand where he could see it every time his eyes snapped open. Still, his body refused to believe in peace just because a door had a lock and no one was shouting on the other side. He stayed curled beneath Adrian. Blackwell's jacket, fully dressed, shoes still on, one hand closed around the key until the edges left tiny half-moons in his palm. Outside the windows, rain moved down the glass in silver lines, turning the estate lights into blurred stars. Somewhere below, a grandfather clock marked every hour with a soft, patient chime. At 3 a.m, Noah heard footsteps stop outside his door. His breath caught. The footsteps did not come closer. No one touched the handle. After a moment, Adrian's voice came through the wood, low and careful. Dr. Carter found something. You do not have to discuss it tonight. I only wanted you to hear it from me first. Noah sat up so quickly the jacket slipped from one shoulder. His throat tightened around words that would not come. On the other side of the door, Adrian waited, and somehow that was worse than being ordered. Waiting gave Noah the burden of choice. He stared at the key, then at the door, then at his own hands, pale and trembling in the moonlight. What did she find? He asked. The silence after that felt heavy enough to bend the walls. The marks were placed deliberately, Adrian said. Not all of them, but enough. Noah's stomach folded in on itself. He had always known the scars were memories, punishments, warnings, proof that he had survived days he was not supposed to talk about. But deliberately was a colder word. Deliberately meant someone had planned the shape of his pain like ink on a contract. I do not understand, Noah whispered, though part of him feared he did. Adrian's voice lowered even more. Some old families used coded marks before digital records became too easy to trace. Symbols, angles, placement. Dr. Carter recognized one pattern and called a specialist I trust. Noah pressed his fingers against his collarbone, where the hidden symbol had turned the entire underworld silent. So what am I? The question came out small, almost childish. A person, Adrian answered immediately. No hesitation, no strategy, just the word, firm as a locked gate. Noah closed his eyes, and something in his chest shook loose. Adrian continued, but someone used you to carry information. Names, routes, debts, agreements that were never supposed to survive on paper. The rain tapped harder against the window. Noah remembered rooms with covered lamps, men speaking in lowered voices, his stepfather telling him to look at the floor, always the floor, because good Omegas did not listen and smart ones did not remember. He remembered being moved from apartment to apartment, city to city, always under a new last name, always told he was lucky anyone bothered keeping him alive. His memories had never lined up properly. Now, suddenly, they clicked together with a sound so quiet, it was almost cruel. The scars are a ledger, Noah said. Adrian did not answer right away, and that answer was enough. Noah laughed once, but there was no humor in it. I thought they were just proof that I was hard to love. The words slipped out before he could stop them. The hallway went still. Then Adrian said, very softly, Noah, open the door only if you want to. He did not say please. He did not command. He gave the choice back and left it in Noah's hands like something fragile. Slowly, Noah stood. His legs felt unsteady beneath him as he crossed the carpet. He unlocked the door, but opened it only a few inches. Adrian stood in the hallway wearing a black shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms, his expression controlled except for his eyes. They were silver and storm-dark, but not with rage at Noah. Never at Noah. In his hand was a plain manila folder. No dramatic seal. No weapon. No threat. Just paper and somehow that frightened Noah more. "There are names in here," Adrian said. "Some belong to men who were in that hall tonight. Some belong to people inside my own family network." Noah's fingers tightened on the doorframe. "Your people?" Adrian looked down at the folder as if it had become something poisonous. Maybe. That single word changed the temperature of the hallway. The monster was not only outside the gate. It might be inside the house, smiling over breakfast, signing checks, calling Adrian family. Noah's gaze dropped to the jacket still wrapped around his shoulders. For the first time, he understood why Adrian had gone so still when he saw the mark. This was not only about saving him. This was about a buried war waking up. Adrian took one slow step back, giving Noah space even as his whole world narrowed around the truth. "No one will force you to remember tonight," he said. "But when you are ready, I need to know what you saw 10 years ago." Noah's hand went cold on the brass key. A memory rose behind his eyes. A kitchen washed in emergency lights, a younger boy hidden behind a metal door, and Noah's own small voice whispering, "Stay quiet if you want to live." He looked at Adrian, really looked at him, and the hallway seemed to tilt. "I think," Noah said, barely breathing, "I saved you before I knew your name." Adrian did not move for several seconds after Noah said it, and somehow his stillness was louder than any shout could have been. The hallway lamp painted half his face in gold and left the other half in shadow, like the man himself had been split between the past and the present. Noah expected disbelief, maybe suspicion, maybe that cold mafia stare people used when they were deciding whether someone was useful or lying. Instead, Adrian slowly lowered the folder to his side and looked at him as if the floor had vanished beneath both of them. "You were there," Adrian said. It was not a question, but it shook anyway. Noah's fingers tightened around the edge of the door until the wood pressed into his palm. "I think so." The answer sounded weak, even to him. He hated that. He hated how memory could be both a locked room and a flood. "I was little. Maybe 8. Maybe 9. I do not remember everything in order." Adrian gave a single nod, careful and controlled. "We do this in the morning." Noah blinked. "What?" "You are exhausted. You are scared. And I am not going to stand in a hallway at 3 in the morning and pull old nightmares out of you because they matter to me." That should not have hurt. It was kindness. Real kindness. The kind that made Noah's chest ache because he had no practice receiving it. "But you need to know." "I do," Adrian said. "Not more than you need to breathe." Noah stared at him through the narrow opening, still wrapped in his jacket, still holding the key like a lifeline. "Hey." Strange thing happened then. The panic did not disappear, but it loosened by a thread. Adrian stepped back again, creating more space. "Lock the door, Noah." His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "I will be here in the morning." Noah did lock it. His hand shook so badly the key scraped twice before turning. He slept after that. Not deeply, not peacefully, but enough that morning arrived softer than expected. Sunlight spilled across the cream carpet. A tray sat outside his door with toast, scrambled eggs, orange juice, and a note in neat black handwriting that said, "Only if you are hungry." No pressure. Noah read it 3 times before crying, silently and furiously, because apparently breakfast could be dangerous if it was kind enough. At 10, Mrs. Holloway led him to the library, where the walls were lined with dark shelves and old photographs of the Blackwell family. Adrian stood near the window, dressed in a charcoal sweater instead of a suit, looking less like the ruler of an empire and more like someone trying not to frighten a wounded bird. Dr. Carter was there too, sitting far enough away to feel optional. On the coffee table lay a recorder, a legal pad, and the manila folder, closed. Adrian touched none of them. "You can stop at any time," he said. "You can skip anything. You can say you do not know." Noah nodded, though his throat had already gone dry. He sat in the armchair closest to the window, because exits mattered, and because Adrian had clearly chosen the seat for that reason. The memory came slowly at first. A big house that smelled like rain and lemon cleaner. A kitchen with metal counters. Adults speaking in urgent, careful voices. Noah remembered being told to stay under the prep table and not make a sound. Then a boy stumbled in, younger than Adrian was now but older than Noah, wearing a white dress shirt with one sleeve torn at the cuff, his silver eyes wide and furious and terrified. He had not looked like a mafia prince. He had looked like a kid who had lost the map to his own life. "You were there," Noah whispered, staring at Adrian, but seeing the boy instead. You were trying not to cry. Adrian's expression changed so subtly most people would have missed it. Noah did not. I never told anyone that. You kept saying you had to go back. Noah pressed a hand to his stomach as the room tilted around the memory. I told you no. I pushed you toward the walk-in freezer. Not inside the freezer, just the cold storage room beside it. There was a broken handle. I knew how to keep it shut from the outside. Adrian's fingers curled once against his thigh. I remember darkness, he said, and someone whispering through the door. Noah's voice thinned. I said, stay quiet if you want to live. The library went silent except for the soft tick of a clock. Adrian looked at him, then, really looked, and the power people feared in him seemed to fold inward into something raw. That voice was you. Noah nodded. I think they found out after. I think that is when they started marking me. Not because I heard too much. He looked down at his hands, pale against the borrowed sleeves. Because I saved the wrong boy. Adrian crossed the room, then stopped several feet away and lowered himself to one knee, not touching, not crowding, just making himself smaller than the memory. No, he said, voice rough but steady. You saved a boy. There was nothing wrong about it. Noah tried to answer, but the words broke apart. For 10 years, the story carved into his skin had told him he was a mistake with consequences. Now Adrian Blackwell knelt in front of him like the truth had rewritten the ground beneath them both. Then the library door opened, and Marcus Vale stepped inside with a silver breakfast tray, his smile calm, his eyes resting for half a second too long on the closed folder. I hope I am not interrupting, Marcus said. Noah's scent turned cold with recognition before his mind caught up. Adrian noticed. Of course he noticed. And for the first time since Noah arrived at the estate, the danger was not outside the walls. Marcus Vale had been part of the Blackwell estate for so long that even the house seemed trained to make room for him. He moved through the library with the quiet confidence of a man who had signed too many papers, kept too many secrets, and survived by never looking surprised. The silver tray in his hands held coffee, toast, and a small bowl of strawberries arranged with almost insulting care. Noah saw none of it. His eyes were fixed on Marcus's left hand, on the simple gold signet ring resting against his finger. It was older than the suit, older than the smile, marked with a tiny crescent cut through a line. The same shape lived in one of the pale scars near Noah's ribs, hidden beneath cotton and memory. His throat closed. Adrian rose slowly from one knee, not fast enough to frighten Noah, but with a stillness that made the room colder. Marcus, he said, you are interrupting. Marcus looked at the folder on the table, then at Dr. Carter, then at Noah. His smile stayed in place, but the warmth left it. I heard our guest had a difficult night. I thought breakfast might help. Noah's fingers twisted into Adrian's jacket. Guest. The words sounded clean. Too clean. Men like Marcus always knew how to polish ugly things until they looked respectable. Adrian stepped half an inch to the side, placing himself between Noah and Marcus without making a show of it. Mrs. Holloway handles breakfast. Of course, Marcus said smoothly. Old habits. Dr. Carter closed her medical bag with a soft click that seemed to echo. Noah wished he could disappear into the armchair. His body remembered Marcus before his mind had permission to. The smell of expensive soap. The calm voice outside locked doors. The way adults lowered their eyes when he entered a room. Marcus glanced at Noah again, and the look was brief, almost gentle, almost fatherly, almost perfect. That was what made Noah shake. You have grown, Marcus said. The library stopped breathing. Adrian's voice dropped. You know him. It was not a question. Marcus set the tray down with careful hands. I know many people, Adrian. That is why your family keeps me. Noah heard the old rhythm beneath the sentence. A warning wrapped in manners. He pulled the jacket tighter around himself and forced air into his lungs. Not much. Just enough. He was there, Noah whispered. Adrian did not turn around, but every part of him listened. At the house. 10 years ago. After I hid you. Marcus sighed, like Noah had spilled coffee on a document instead of opening a grave. Trauma can make children invent connections. Noah flinched at the word invent. Adrian noticed. He always noticed. His hand lowered beside the chair, palm open, not reaching, just present. Noah looked at that hand for one long second. Then, slowly, he placed his fingers over Adrian's knuckles. Adrian went completely still, as if trust had touched him harder than any threat ever could. Do not let him make me sound confused, Noah said. His voice was thin, but it did not break. I remember his ring. I remember his voice. I remember him saying the boy should have stayed hidden forever. Marcus's expression finally changed. Only a little. A crack in expensive marble. Adrian's eyes stayed on him, silver and calm in the most dangerous way. Leave the room, Adrian said. Marcus gave a small laugh. You are emotional right now. Leave the room, Adrian repeated. And do not speak to Noah again unless he asks you to. The words landed with the weight of law. Marcus looked at Noah then, and for the first time, Noah did not drop his eyes. He was terrified. His hands were cold. His heartbeat sounded like footsteps running through an empty hall. But Adrian's jacket was warm around his shoulders, and Adrian had not called him fragile, damaged, or useful. He had listened. Marcus bowed his head by a fraction and walked out, closing the door softly behind him. The softness was worse than a slam. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Noah realized he was still holding Adrian's hand and tried to pull away. Adrian let him immediately. No resistance. No claim. The absence of force nearly undid him. I am sorry, Noah said automatically. Adrian turned then, and the look on his face was not rage. It was restraint built over something burning. Do not apologize for telling the truth. Noah shook his head. You are going to destroy everything because of me. No, Adrian said. Because of what they did. That is the same thing to men like you. The words came out sharper than he meant, but Adrian did not punish the edge. He only looked at him with a quietness that made honesty possible. Noah swallowed. If my scars become an excuse for more darkness, then they still own me. I cannot survive that. I cannot be the reason you turn into the kind of man they wanted you to become. Adrian looked down at his own hands, as if seeing them through Noah's fear. When he spoke, his voice was lower, rougher, human. Then tell me where the line is. Noah blinked. What? Tell me what justice looks like when it does not become another cage. No one had ever asked Noah to define the shape of his own safety. For a moment, all he could do was stare. Then he whispered, expose them. Stop them. Make sure no Omega disappears into those rooms again. But do not make me watch you lose yourself. Adrian nodded once, as solemn as a vow. Then that is the line. Outside, the estate remained quiet, but the quiet had changed. Somewhere beyond the library door, Marcus Vale was still walking freely through a house that had trusted him. Somewhere in the city, old families still believed Noah Bennett was a secret they had successfully buried. But inside the library, with sunlight touching the closed folder between them, Adrian Blackwell made a different kind of promise. Not to own Noah, not to avenge him blindly, to stand beside him while the truth learned how to speak. By noon, the Blackwell estate had become a house full of quiet footsteps and locked doors. Adrian did not announce a war. He did not storm through the halls or throw accusations at portraits of dead men. He simply changed the access codes, dismissed every guard Marcus Vale had hired in the last 5 years, and moved Noah Bennett's room from the guest wing to a smaller suite beside the old library, where the windows faced the garden and every hallway had cameras Adrian trusted. Noah watched all of it from the edge of the sofa, hands wrapped around a mug of peppermint tea that had gone cold 10 minutes after Mrs. Holloway brought it in. No one asked him to explain more than he could. That should have comforted him. Instead, it made the silence heavier, because now his memories had weight. They could move people. They could close gates. They could make Adrian Blackwell look at men he had known his whole life as if they had become strangers overnight. By late afternoon, Adrian brought in his youngest cousin, Julian Cross, a clean-cut beta with wire-rimmed glasses, a laptop covered in security stickers, and the exhausted expression of someone who trusted data more than family. Julian spread bank records, old property transfers, clinic invoices, and faded adoption documents across the library table. Noah stayed near the window, Adrian standing close enough to be a shield, but not close enough to trap him. Marcus buried him under 3 legal identities, Julian said, tapping the screen. Noah Bennett is the latest. Before that, he was listed as Owen Bell, then Nathan Brooks. Each name appears for 18 to 24 months, then disappears. Noah stared at the names. They felt like coats strangers had forced over his shoulders. I remember Owen, he said quietly. There was an apartment above a laundromat in Cleveland. The walls shook when the dryers ran. Julian's fingers paused over the keyboard. Adrian looked at Noah, not with pity, but with the careful attention of someone holding a thread that might unravel a decade. Cleveland was one of the storage routes, Julian said. Not people storage. Record storage. At least that is how it was labeled. Noah gave a small, humorless smile. They always found clean words. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He had promised Noah a line, and he was holding it so tightly it was visible in every breath. Julian opened another file. On the screen appeared a scanned photograph of Marcus shaking hands with 3 older men outside a courthouse in Albany. The date stamped at the bottom was 10 years old, 2 weeks after the night Noah remembered. Beside them stood a boy with pale hair, oversized clothes, and eyes fixed on the pavement. Noah did not recognize himself at first. Then he saw the way the boy held his left wrist with his right hand, like he was trying to keep from falling apart. His mug slipped. Adrian caught it before it hit the carpet, setting it gently on the table. "That is me," Noah whispered. The room blurred at the edges. "He told me I was going somewhere better." Julian's voice softened. The better place was a private facility funded through a charity Marcus controlled. A charity, Noah repeated, because the words sounded impossible in his mouth. "For abandoned Omegas," Julian said, disgust making his careful voice crack for the first time. On paper, it helped them. In reality, it moved them where no one would ask questions. Adrian turned toward the window, and for several seconds he was only a silhouette against the winter-bright garden. When he looked back, the feared Alpha was still there, but something else stood beside him now. Grief. Not loud, not performative, just deep enough to change the shape of his face. "My father suspected him," Adrian said. "That is why he died that night." Noah flinched at the word, but Adrian immediately shook his head. "Not because of you. Because Marcus chose betrayal long before either of us understood what was happening." A phone buzzed on the table. Julian checked it and went still. Marcus just accessed the south gate remotely. Adrian moved to the security panel. "Where is he?" Julian's face went pale. "Not leaving. Letting someone in." The cameras flickered once, then returned in black and white. On the screen, Marcus stood beyond the gate in a long gray coat, calm as church bells, speaking into his phone. A message appeared on Adrian's device a second later. "No police. No counsel. No public records. Give me the Omega by midnight, and your house survives its secrets." Noah read the message over Adrian's arm, and the tea in his stomach turned to ice. Adrian deleted it without blinking, but Noah had already seen the truth beneath every clean word. Marcus was not running from the house. He was reaching back into it. And this time, he knew exactly which door Noah was behind. Noah Bennett had learned that danger did not always arrive with broken doors and shouting men. Sometimes it came through a calm phone call, a familiar voice, and the terrible knowledge that staying safe might destroy everyone else. After Marcus Vale threatened to expose the Blackwell family's protected files, Adrian locked down the estate with terrifying precision. Gates sealed, guards positioned, Julian tracing signals behind glowing monitors, and Mrs. Holloway checking every window before. Bringing Noah tea he could not drink. Adrian stayed beside him in the library, silent but shaking beneath the surface, holding tightly to the promise Noah had forced from him. No blind revenge. No becoming the monster Marcus wanted him to be. At midnight, Marcus called again and demanded Noah come alone, or the truth Adrian's father had buried would be released in a way that would ruin the council, bury evidence, and make the missing Omegas vanish forever. Adrian refused, but Noah understood guilt too well. When the house grew quiet, he folded Adrian's jacket on the bed, placed the brass key beside it, and left a shaking note. He was not leaving because he did not trust Adrian, but because he finally trusted himself to come back. Then he slipped through the dark service corridor, crossed the cold garden, and faced Marcus at the gate, trembling but unbroken. 7 minutes later, Adrian found the empty room, the jacket, the key, and the note. His voice became deadly calm as he told Julian to wake the council. By 1 a.m, every powerful family sat beneath the old Federal Bank on Wall Street, irritated until Adrian entered with Noah's note in his pocket, Julian carrying locked cases, Dr. Carter holding a sealed report, and Mrs. Holloway standing as a witness to decency. Marcus stood beside Noah, smug and polished, calling him confused, frightened, and useful. Adrian corrected him with ice in his voice. His name was Noah. Then Julian opened the evidence: bank transfers, clinic records, charity documents, old ledgers, hidden routes, and names disguised under foundations. Dr. Carter confirmed that the marks on Noah's body matched an abandoned family cipher while protecting his privacy. When Noah finally spoke, his voice trembled but carried through the chamber. He told them how he had been moved since childhood, renamed, erased, and taught that nobody would believe in Omega without records. Marcus tried to silence him, but Adrian cut him off. The old families watched their secrets burn in the white light. Adrian gave them one choice: locate and protect every Omega connected to the routes before sunrise, or every file would go to federal investigators. Marcus lunged for the folder and was stopped by guards, his performance cracking at last. Noah reached for Adrian only when his knees weakened, and Adrian crossed the room only then, offering his hand instead of taking control. By sunrise, Marcus was in custody. The council was shattered, and Noah expected triumph but felt only exhaustion. Adrian took him to a small Queen's diner for pancakes, coffee, and strawberry jam, then brought him home to a garden suite where every lock opened from the inside. He told Noah he could leave whenever he wanted, with money, records, and protection, and none of it required him to stay. Noah asked what happened if he chose to stay. Adrian answered that then he stayed because it was his choice, not because he belonged to anyone. So Noah set his rules: knock before entering, never decide what he could handle, never look at him like he was broken. Adrian promised all three. Weeks later, the Underworld still feared the Alpha who had ended an era before breakfast, but Noah knew the quieter truth. Adrian Blackwell knocked every time, learned how Noah liked his tea, kept strawberry jam in the refrigerator, and never once asked him to be grateful for being free. One evening, when Adrian paused outside the open door, Noah smiled and said, "You can come in."